Hi, class. You can see on your screen what we are going to be building today. This is a image gallery with a um, large image up top, thumbnails down below, and as we click through, it changes. You can see on the um, main image down below, there's opacity on there, and there's fading in and out of the image. This is a CSS heavy project. Pretty light on the JavaScript and the HTML because we're going to use the CSS to build this grid and do a lot of the transitions. So we will head on over to Replit, where the first thing we're going to do is, like yesterday, we're going to take the uh, JavaScript and we're going to cut it out of the script file. Oops, hold on. And then we're going to go over to the HTML. In the head, we're going to add script tags. And paste the JavaScript in between. I'm then going to close that so that it's not taking up everything. I'm going to close my Tuesday files, and now I'm sitting here with a empty Wednesday HTML and script.js files. We seem to be missing the Wednesday style file. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it WED style with a capital S.css. And now we have that file too. And I want that to be my script tag. All right, so we're going to start in the HTML. We have our header that has been there, throughout the projects. In the main section, we are going to add a container. What I'm going to do, and I'm going to do things a little bit differently today. I will code a few lines and then we will talk about them. And I will ask you to add comments stating what the lines are doing. All right, so as I'm talking about what the code is doing, you're going to be adding comments to your files. Let's close this. All right, this is a div with a class container that is going to wrap around everything else we are putting into this HTML. Then we have a div with the class of main img, which is going to hold this top image. So we're going to put that in there with our img tag. And we're going to give it an ID of current. And then down below, we're going to have another div with a class of imgs for images. And that is going to wrap around all of the smaller images that we're putting in. like we've been doing with a little different than what we've done with most of the other sliders, I am going to put all the images in right from the beginning because we want to see them in the boxes. So I'm going to copy and paste. You can pause for a moment. Just note that on the smaller images below the thumbnails, right, the source is going back to the image file, and then I have this on click, and that is going to, that's how we're going to control what it does when we click the image down below. And right now, if you look on my side panel here, you can see I just have all of the images stacked on top of each other because I haven't done any styling or sizing. So as I said, you can go ahead, pause, take a moment to insert all of the files. Copy and paste is your friend. Go ahead and do that. And then we will move on over and start some of the CSS. I'm going to start with some body styling. Once again, I will type and then explain. And again, I would like you to add some comments indicating what the different bits are doing. We're not going to talk about every single line of code. I mean, you know what margin 20px does. All right. So that's just some starter body styling. Now we have that container that wraps around everything. Did I spell container wrong? No. Okay. Um, so at this point, all I did was I set a maximum width. So when it goes full screen, you'll see it doesn't take up the whole thing anymore. Set the margin to auto, a border, and a background. Next, we're going to look at that. Oh, because that's the entire, sorry, that's the entire container. Now we're going to address the smaller sections. So we have that main image, and we're going to reach for that image tag inside. And then in the class images, we want those image tags. Now, in this case, we could have just grabbed all image tags for this because those are the only ones we're using. But, you know, it's better practice to make sure you're targeting more specifically so that it's scalable. If we want to add images on another page, we don't necessarily want them styled the same way. We want the images to take up 100% of their container. And I'm going to use object fit cover. Please make sure you add a comment here that explains what object fit cover is going to do. If you don't know, look it up. But we've talked about object fit enough, but go ahead and add that comment. Now to that class images, IMGS, which is all of those smaller thumbnails. We're going to set the display to grid. Okay, now based on the uh, grid tutorial that you guys watched, I would like you to add some comments explaining this code that I put onto all of the images. Particularly, I'd like to know what 1FR means, and then just in general, a comment explaining what this is doing. Now within that image class, we're going to again pull all the image tags. Right, so you can see now on the side, right, I've set a min and a max height because I wanted to control how big they are for the smaller ones, but I also wanted the larger ones to be able to um, show a little bit more of the image, right? I didn't want to squash down the ones that are in the landscape direction. And then for the top image there, we have the ID of current. And I set that to 60 viewport heights. It's just kind of, that was a trial and error. I played around with a couple of different heights, but when it goes full screen, you can see here, right? Um, Even when I go to the larger images, everything stays on the screen. And that's really what I was going for. So that's how I wound up with the 60 viewport heights. Okay, so now from there, we are going to move over to the JavaScript, which, as I said, is fairly short and straightforward. I think, what are we looking at? Less than 10 lines of code. So I'm going to start with a couple of variables. All right, so let main in img equal document.getElement by ID current. So that's the variable for the main image. And then const img document.query selector all images, so the class images, imgs, and all of the image tags within that class is what's going to go into that const img. And then we have a function. So the function keyword, we're going to call it select img, and we're going to pass all the images. All right, so this first line is something that we'll go into a bit later. For right now, I just need you to trust me on it. And this is what we call an arrow function. And it just shortens the code. So what I'm doing here is I'm pulling all of the images in that const img. I'm going through, looping through all of them and setting the opacity to 1, which means that, it'll show up like this. So instead of breaking this out into like a reset function and everything, I just put everything into one function. So that's our reset. Every time we call the function, we're going to set all the opacities to 1. And then we're going to take the main image and we're going to, oops, yeah, we're going to take the main image source and we're going to set it equal to images.source. So that's the whatever was passed in is what we're going to add to that main image source. Not doing that yet. Okay, so at this point, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do the opacity yet. At this point, I just wanted to so at this point, we are able to click through all of the images. So in essence, we have a gallery with a slider that works. We want to go back and we want to add some additional styling to it. So we're going to head back to the CSS. And the first thing I'm going to do is add the fade in, right? Because you see on this one, and I'll add the background color too. But you see how when I click on the image, it fades in. It's not as sharp. And it's a design choice. There's nothing inherently wrong with this. If that's what you want, we're just going to do something a little bit different and add some to it. So to our root element, we're going to set a variable. And then, yeah, while I'm here, I'm going to paste in my background color. I just went for something a little bit different. So I used the Italian flag. I used linear gradient. I set it to right, which means that it's going to place these colors and values from left to right. And it just gives us, I don't know, a bit of a look. And then, all right, so the fade in, let's go down here to the bottom. So here we have added this fade in class. And I don't know if you noticed, but we haven't used this fade in class, but we've styled it. Set the opacity to 0 and added this animation. We called our fade time variable from up here, which is just going to tell it how long how long it should take to fade in. So now over to the JavaScript, we are going to So we're going to take this variable current. So to the variable current, we're going to add to its class list the fade in class. Then we need to set the timeout. All right. Oh, sorry, not done yet. So set timeout, again, we're using an arrow function, but basically what it's saying is it's removing that fade in class from the current image. And then images dot, and that's just adding the opacity to the thumbnail image that we clicked. Okay, and as I said, we cleared that in the beginning. Now let me try and go back to my CSS and see if I'm still missing something. Then one forwards. Oh, I need keyframes. Sorry. Okay, now I would like you to pause for a moment, take a minute, go over, do a little digging to figure out what keyframes means, does. And I want you to add a comment telling me what you think this bit of code here is doing. All right, so make sure you add in a comment telling me what that bit of code is doing. All right, so now we work. And you can probably hazard a guess just from looking at the difference between what we had and what we have now. And then the last thing I want to do is I'm going to make this responsive, right? So, because right now, look at that, that's not too attractive. So I'm going to add in a couple of media queries. Sorry, I don't know if you just saw that, my screen just went blank. I'm going to, so I added one for 600 pixels. I'm going to add another one for 300 pixels. And at that point, it's going to go down to one column. So now you'll see that it goes to two columns, goes to one column. And I could have stepped through. I could have gone to 4, 3, 2, 1, but I just, you can certainly add more media queries if you want to. All right, so that's basically it. This is your, let's load up here, your final product. You can click through. The image is going to fade in and out. The image that has been selected is going to have opacity on the lower image, and then the whole thing's going to be responsive. As the screen gets smaller, we will eventually stack the, I can't get it small enough to stack, but anyway, that's it. Now, as far as your comments go, I would have to go back and look and see how many times I specifically asked you to add a comment, and I will do that. But you should, when you turn this project in, you should have 10 different comments explaining what, at least 10, explaining what different bits of code are doing. And of course, you need to make sure that you have the ones that I specified. Thank you and have a nice day.